Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SEO Fight Club. Saying hello in the chat and reminding people to ask questions. There we go. Pop out that chat. And today we have a really awesome episode because Charles is going to walk us through more of the MS Now website
That's
migration.
next. That's
That's
next
next
week, Ted.
week.
That's
Oh,
next
that's
week, Ted.
next week.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I have
Another
one
well,
for
all
I have
right.
one for
Well,
I have one today to discuss, but not about
yes.
the migration.
ah,
Sorry.
well, all right. So I got the title wrong on the episode. I'll have to fix it afterwards.
It's a common practice to lie during sweeps week. It's like, and we have Taylor Swift on the show today. You got to throw that out there.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, what are we talking about then if we're not talking about MS now?
URL diagnosis. Why isn't my page in Google?
Ah, okay. I like diagnostics.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I figured
And
you like this one.
Madge, I heard that your new website is live. Is that true?
It is 100% live and kicking.
Yeah. So if you want to check out his new website and his latest system and his offers, and if you want to see if your Black Friday credits are still there, I recommend you log in and double check. If you have any issues, just, reach out to Madge. It's a new system. Help them test. Look for some typos. Maybe if you find a good bug, maybe he'll give you, a credit or two as a bounty. Um,
Or he may charge you extra, one or the other.
yeah. So yeah, check it out, magicpr.com. All right, so I'll hand it over to you, Charles.
All right, great. All right, so everybody should see my screen. So here's a common question that the clients, and whether you're in-house or have it clients, you'll always get the why don't I see my page in Google? So I got one of these just the other day, and I figured this was a nice little kind of URL detective story. So a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, actually texted me. Now he still works for an enterprise company, and he had folks coming to him complaining, "Hey, my page isn't in Google." And he texted me saying, "Hey, you got a whole bunch of indexers you work with. Can you just plug this URL in the indexer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to help you out. Indexing credits are super cheap." But first, when someone comes and gives you a claim like my page isn't in Google, you always fact check the claim. Don't ever accept someone else's premise in any argument, quite frankly, but especially when it comes to SEO and someone says, I got penalized, my site's not in Google, I'm not ranking for this. You always first fact check the claim. So what I did is I did a simple site colon command. And so I went to Google, typed in site colon, and then the URL. Now I don't include any of the protocols, so no HTTP or HTTPS. I also usually don't include the subdomain. So if it's www or non-dubbed or something else, I don't usually include that. So I'll do a quick site colon command and see if it shows up in Google. If you get this little thing on the left-hand side that you're seeing, where it's, your search didn't match any documents, then okay, indeed, the page is not in Google. If it shows up, the next thing you want to do is a site colon space and then the keyword that they claim they should be ranking for.
All right.
Because, yeah, go ahead,
with
Ted.
with this, I know you gotta be careful because Google has this switcheroo that it will do if it thinks you have a typo. So it will, on your behalf, show you the results for the corrected typo and give you that, and it'll tell you that it'll give you a link, or do you actually want to search for what you searched for. So just know that this will usually come up like this, but sometimes it'll fake you out and show you search results for what Google thinks the corrected search is.
So always, yeah, always check and see what they're showing you the results for. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. So if it were to show up in the site colon, I would do a second site colon with a space and then the keyword that I wanted to rank for, and to see does Google consider this page relevant for that keyword. So we're really checking two different things. The first one is checking, it's really checking a crawling indexation issue, whereas the second one is checking an on-page optimization. So that's the first thing I always do. I fact check and just figure out, is this a technical issue? Is it even true? Is this a technical issue or is it an on-page issue?
Charles, let
So in
me
this
ask you
case,
real quick
yeah,
on this one. When, and I don't know if you asked your friend this, your very famous friend, I know from testing. Did he check in Search Console and see what Search Console had to say about this particular page? You know, what was the status that it had in there?
I can't remember.
Okay,
Um, I can't remember if he checked it, and I can't even remember if I asked. So this was
okay,
several weeks ago.
sure.
Um, and I
And
probably didn't even bother asking since this was via text, and I'm not a big fan of texting because it just takes too long and my old fingers cramp up. But
I know there are reasons why I would cite colon search a just a domain, like a homepage reference, versus an inner URL. But did you have a specific rationale in why you picked an inner URL?
because this was the page that was supposedly not showing up in Google.
Okay, so
Um,
Yeah.
specific page, not
yes.
like something that's plaguing this whole site. It's just a page on the site as issue.
Right. And that's a good clarification, Ted. So in this slide, you'll see I have site colon domain. Really, I should say domain plus directory plus page or something along those lines. So you can put the entire, you can go right to the page, and that's what I would do. I'd put site colon and then the entire URL to the page to see does it show up in Google or not. And again, I wouldn't have protocols and I wouldn't include any subdomains. The reason I don't include any subdomains is especially with large sites this what could be happening is that a there could be a stage or a dev or a prod. There could be some non production version of this page ranking instead, and I have seen that happen.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I always exclude the subdomains just in case something weird is happening. I've seen lots of weird stuff. So once I saw that it wasn't in there, I went and submitted to a bunch of different indexers. So these are some of the indexers I like. I'm not going to talk about indexers today too much, but yeah, I just went in there and said, okay, let me try this, let me try that, and I just kind of threw it all against the wall. It's one URL. I've got a bunch of indexers I work with, so just throw it against the wall, see what happens, and kind of move on from there. But I couldn't help but take a peek. So you give me a URL, you give me an SEO problem. I'm not just going to throw it in an indexer and walk away. I'm like, all right, let me at least look at this page. Is there something kind of boneheaded that was happening? So the first thing I did is I checked the canonical. Is the canonical wrong on the page? On the right hand side, you can see that's what the page looks like. I did go to the page physically. It did resolve. So I checked the canonical tag. I also checked the meta robots. Are we blocking it? Is somebody doing something stupid there? I checked the robots.txt file. For some reason, is this directory or page being blocked? I don't have it here on the slide, but I checked the hreflang. The hreflang acts like a super canonical. So I wanted to see, okay, is there something going on this page that's telling Google, hey, don't index me? Because I would bet that that's like 75% of the problems. When people say my page isn't in Google, it's often because it's being blocked or maybe there's not even a path to it. Maybe it's an orphan page of some kind. So I took a look. Everything looked fine though. So I was like, all right, it doesn't look like anyone's doing anything wrong, which I'm not too surprised that, my buddy's not an idiot. He knows how to check these things.
Mhm.
But I am curious nonetheless. So then I decided to dig a little deeper. So I went to a tool. I think it's technicalseo.com. They have a cool little fetch and render tool. Put the page in there, and you'll notice that I set the user agent to Googlebot smartphone. So whenever I crawl pages, whether it's with some fetch and render tool, whether it's ScreenFrog, I always use Googlebot smartphone as the user agent because I want to see how the page reacts when Googlebot shows up, not when ScreenFrog shows up, not when Chrome browser shows up. I want to see what happens when Googlebot smartphone shows up, and specifically the Googlebot smartphone because that's the primary crawler. We're mobile first world. We've been a mobile first world for a while. And I told it, hey, obey the robots.txt and render. And the first thing I thought was, oh, look at that. It's doing a 301 redirect. Well, that's weird because I had just been to the page and I don't remember it doing a 301 redirect. So I decided the next thing I'll do, and this is a cool little trick as well. If you don't have Search Console access to a site, use the Rich Results tool. It uses the exact same bot. It uses Googlebot, Google Inspect bot. So if we remember back years ago, if you had put your page in the rich results or the AMP checker, or there was another one, I'm forgetting it right now, but there was a third one that Google took away. It would use regular Googlebot and crawl it. And it was actually a little trick to get Google to crawl your page and to find your page and discover your page. Google finally got smart to that like 3 years ago, maybe more, and they created an inspect bot. And inspect bot is the bot that's used when you're in Search Console, but it's the exact same bot that's used in this tool as well. I know because I've tested it, and I tested a bunch of their tools to see if they left any holes, and they did not. But the cool thing is, if I don't have Search Console access, I could just use this. And you can see this is the same inspect as in Search Console, and it's using the same bot. So I could see that it was working, and it was crawled successfully, yada, yada, yada. But the page does not look the same. So that kind of confirmed what I saw here, that it was redirecting to some other page. And that's what happens with the inspect bot is if a page redirects, it just shows you all the information for the page that it's redirecting to, not the source page. So I knew, okay, so this is weird. And so I went into Screaming Frog. And I said, all right, Screaming Frog, again, Googlebot smartphone, did a crawl, and it said, yep, 301 redirect. So there's so Google's getting a redirect. The weird thing was browser agents saw 200 status. So you can go into Googlebot and you can set pretty much any user agent you want. You can even set a custom one. I went through pretty much all of the browsers and all of the bots. And if you were a bot, you were getting 301 status. If you were a browser, Firefox, IE11, Samsung browser, yada, 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 you were getting a 200 status. So that explained why when I went there and looked at the page, it was there. But when Google went there, it saw a 301. So that explained that. So now is the audience participation and the panel participation. Any guesses as to what happened? What's going on here?
Well, I'll be wrong first. Uh, I'm
No wrong
guessing
answers in SEO.
there are wrong answers. There are, in fact, sir. I would guess that somewhere in their HT access, they've got, some sort of 301 set up along those lines. Or it's possible that you missed in the robots.txt another directory, another incarnation of that, but I doubt it because you're usually pretty thorough about that. I'm guessing some sort of conditional 301.
Yeah, I'm guessing that somebody started winging it in the SEO playbook and they said, "Oh, we got to keep Google off of our development page until it's ready. We can do that with a 301 redirect for the search engine bots." And because it was a one off and the project probably changed hands, those redirects became vestigial tails, but were still in effect.
So, Ted, when you say winging it, is that a technical SEO term? Can you go into a little more detail about what you mean?
Yeah, somebody has a loose idea about how it all works and what they can do with things, but then they forget that when they make those things load bearing, and they're the only one with documented understanding of where it is and why it is. That it's a ticking time bomb when it gets forgotten about later. And so I think they ticking time bomb themselves.
So I've seen things like that, Ted, to your point, where somebody learns a little SEO, or maybe not even a little SEO. And actually, at the same organization, we had a developer one time, someone on the server team say, "Oh, look how much Google's hitting our server. That's sucking up a lot of resources. I'm going to rate limit Google." No way that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, stuff like that happens. And so, Lee, I was we're sharing a brain because I was right along your path saying, okay, somebody set up something specific, and I was thinking along the same lines. They were trying to reduce crawling or something. Ted is a little closer to the truth. This was a weird one. So that URL was a promotional URL. The promotion had ended, and it was a kind of evergreen URL. And Ted, we can get into a long conversation about evergreen URLs and how to properly treat them. This is a good, lesson for that one. It was a promotional URL. It was a quasi evergreen, but because the promotion had ended, the decision was we need to redirect this URL someplace else because the promotion's ended. Now, again, that now it stops being an evergreen URL. My feeling would be if you're going to have a URL like this, when the promotion ends, what do? You say this promotion has ended, and you give people links for other places they can go.
Yeah,
Um,
you give them a sign up list to be
give them
notified of other
exactly,
promotions.
exactly other promotions, this promotion, but
Or
that's
you
not the
say
way
this
people.
promotion has ended. Just
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So it was not really a evergreen URL. It was a quasi evergreen URL. Again, it was the kind of thing that happens in enterprise all the time. Someone with authority said, I don't like this page being up. It has to go down, and there was no talking up out of it. So it was a promotional URL. It was redirected because the promotion had ended. Now, Verizon uses a pre-render solution from Botify. I think it's called Micro Workers or something like that. I forget exactly what it's called. Fast Work. I don't know what it's called. But they use a pre-render solution. The reason is they have React JavaScript, server-side rendering. I'm sorry, client-side rendering. And so what we did pre-rendering years and years ago to serve Google a cached version. The problem is the tool cached the redirect. So this is where Ted, I was saying that it was a vestigial redirect. The tool had cached the redirect and was still serving it to bots because that's exactly what the tool does. It serves a cached version to bots. When the redirect was removed, the redirect stayed in the cache. It wasn't something that was cleared automatically. I don't remember why it wasn't cleared automatically, but it wasn't cleared automatically. So
Yeah,
the cache had to be manually cleared.
lost, forgotten knowledge. TikTok, you
Yep.
set up a precarious thing and forgot about it.
So there's a couple lessons in here. So lesson number one, use evergreen URLs and don't bring them down. That's the whole purpose of being an evergreen URL. Just change the wording on the page. To your point, Lee, just say this promotion has ended. Come back whenever to see your next promotion. Or to Ted's point, put a sign up, gather emails. These are people that are coming to your site looking for promotions. You know what kind of customer they are. They're deal seekers. Great. Gather them up, put them in a deal seeker a database so that you know these are the people we reach out to when we have promos. They'll start buying immediately. So, lesson number one. Lesson number two, a lot of times folks will come to me and say, and this was very, very common, hey, we want to use client-side rendering. Is there some way to work around it? Is there some kind of workaround we can do? And there are workarounds. Spotify had a solution, and it works very well, actually. And I remember when I first started there, prerender.io, I think we were using, that worked very well. But to Ted's point, it's a time bomb. Things change. Everyone forgets that it exists because it just sits out there working. And then when it stops working, everyone's like, what's happening? And you end up shooting yourself in the foot. So we started from, hey, why isn't my page in Google? Google's broken, our SEO is broken, to no, internally we're making poor decisions, which ends up hurting our SEO. And this
Yeah.
is something that's very hard as an enterprise and as an internal in-house SEO to really communicate effectively to clients to say the weird things we do will impact our SEO in weird ways. So we always have to be very careful what we're doing. And that makes you a very unpopular person within the organization because, and Ted, I know you've talked about this, you become Dr. No. The
Yep.
SEO becomes Dr. No, says, no, we can't do this, no, we can't do that. And then the focus in an organization becomes how do we get Ted out of our way, not how do I present our website in a way that Google will rank us as high as possible.
Yeah, and then, if I built lots of things in precarious ways and you get me fired, then all of those ticking time bombs, the countdowns start.
Yep.
Because you have to remember, whoever set up the weird, complicated, delicate solution, if they leave or if they get let go, that knowledge of that precarious, delicate thing goes with them.
Yep.
And it's just in the background now.
A-
So
And
don't
to your
make
point,
time
Ted,
bombs.
to your point, Ted, if somebody leaves, you can always reach out to them. I've had people reach out to me months after I've left the organization and say, "Hey, Charles, how did this work? Where is this? We can't find this thing." And I'm always happy to talk to people. If the person's let go, you can never reach out to them ever again. They're never going to help you. So you be very, very careful when setting up these complicated things. Ted, to your point, sometimes you're waiting for people to leave. I'm going to do a little shameless self-promotion now. I'll be speaking at SEO Spring Training in April. Actually, technically, it's more in May than April, but anyways, it's in Chandler, Arizona. You can get 15% off any of your ticket level. Ted, I believe you'll be there as well. Hopefully, we can
Yep.
hang out. Excellent. So yeah, so come by and if you haven't gone to SEO Spring Training, I strongly recommend. It was actually the first of the real SEO conferences I've ever done, and that was years ago. So I'll be speaking, I'll be talking about migrations, and actually, funny enough, in my migration, one of my slides is a company I used to work for, and I was Dr. No. And when I left to go someplace else, the dev says, "Great, we can do what we want now," and they crushed the website. They did a migration, and they didn't want to do any of the hard work that I always made them do. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
they get so happy when they cut the SEO loose.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I know there were people that were happy that I wasn't there because I didn't make them do the hard stuff. Um, so yeah, I'll be speaking there. I'll be talking about migrations. I have lots of new things to talk about, both recent and other things I've done with clients. I had teased a secret launch for January. Well, that didn't happen, but I'm going to be doing it for April. It's not a secret anymore. It's going to be kind of a coaching call I'm going to do. I will be giving more details coming up soon. I'm going to have a special offer for everybody who wants the first 10 or so people who join. It's going to be very low priced because I'll be honest, it's going to be rocky in the first month or two. I'm going to have to figure out the format that works right. So I'm not going to make everyone pay a lot of money for that. But you get in early, you get founders, and then you can pay that amount forever. And you could be one of these people that says, "Oh yeah, I got in back when it was 20 bucks a month or 25 bucks a month, and you're paying a lot more." Well, so anyway, so I'll be doing that. I'll be giving more information later about that.
All you're making me want to do now is to buy up all 10 slots and then resell them.
You know what? If you want to do that, I wouldn't stop you. That'd be okay.
All right.
Nothing like a little capitalism to.
So yeah, now the memberships are $50 each. Thanks, Lee.
Yeah, 100. Charles is worth it. Charles is worth at
Lee's
least
just
100.
driving up costs. There's always an arbitrage guy ruining everything.
All
Called
right.
market efficiency, enforcing market efficiency.
So next week I'll speak about I'll do a one final MS Now, MSNBC to MS Now migration. I'm not going to keep dunking on them, but I will kind of show like where, it's been what, 4 months, 5 months now. Let's
Yeah.
see where they're at.
Yeah, and they've had a little rebound. It'll be
They,
interesting to see
they
the
have had
before
some
and
rebound.
after.
They have had some rebound, so it's not all bad news for them. And then actually, interestingly enough, I have another URL mystery we can talk about in a couple weeks after that. So
Awesome.
What's interesting about the thing is we talk about MS now having a little rebound, but you painted a horrifically expensive number. So it's like they didn't lose $1 trillion, they only lost a few $100 billion,
well,
you know.
so
Well,
so they
heads,
came back.
yeah,
They're still down over a million a day. So they like most everybody listening is like, "Oh my God, I don't get that in 10 years." But for a large enterprise, it's they did recover a good bit, but they're definitely still down.
Yeah.
yeah. Heads will roll. There's just debate about how many and whose.
And who, yeah, it's always who.
Let's see here. Not a lot of questions today. It may be a short day. So before we get into questions, I'll just point out that I was doing field observations this morning in Bing, and I noticed they have a cool new call out feature called action buttons. And apparently, if there is a statistically common thing people in a keyword niche like to do, like, a price lookup, schedule an appointment, an act now type of thing. Those common things, those forms and actions, get detected by Bing, and they get this special call out button. And the thing is probably more eye catching than review stars. So if you get a fair amount of traffic out of Bing and you haven't set up uh, an action button, you might want to look and see what your industry's doing and see if you can't create a feature to get an action button call out for your own site.
Mm.
So I think for, winning the click on the Bing side of things, that could be a really powerful tool.
Yeah, a button certainly would stand out.
Yeah, and so if you want to see an example of it, just go to DUI Lawyer Los Angeles and Bing, and you'll probably see a half dozen of them or so on the first page. Um, so I just thought I would mention that. Let's see. I see sites that have a strong AI visibility for tracked keywords and prompt and AI search. Perplexity, AI overviews, but not in ChatGPT. Why is there low visibility in ChatGPT but high in the others? Um, I don't have a good
They pull
answer
from
for
different
that.
sources. They pull from
Yeah.
different sources. So
And I would guess that the search engines have uh a higher amount of, motivation and reasons to tinker with that. Whereas ChatGPT is trying to increase like the amount of problems it's capable of solving. Um, I don't think they have to play the citation game as much as the search engines do. So I think the search engines are doing a lot more tinkering, and they're trying to probably figure out how to monetize it or to draw enough traffic to monetize. So they're probably, playing that game. But if you're listening, search engine execs, I know you're often too busy smelling your own farts in conference room C. Um, but just hear me out a second. When Google was the new technology on the scene, there was this little thing called the evangelists who really liked the capabilities of the new technologies, and they built their businesses around these new technologies, and they went and told their grandparents, hey, these technologies are really amazing and they help our business. So please, use them, and you should probably learn this so that, you're capable in the world. And it seems like this go around on technology, you're just shitting on the evangelists. And we're going to remember that. So when you decide to only give 3 citations out of the 17 that you used, but say, oh, they're there, you just have to show more than scroll, and then you'll see them, maybe. All right. I mean, if you want to do that to the people who would normally be singing your praise, if you just cited for using the content directly, not through a user interaction cloaking game, you know, people would be scrambling to be a part of that. But right now, I really don't know many people who give a shit, because if you're not in the top 3 citations off the bat, it doesn't matter if you're number 15, because nobody's ever going to see it. And that's just plagiarism. You're using the content, but you're not actually willing to show the citation to the public. You hide it. So that's your citations page fell out of the report. Oops, my bad. It's in my bag. Do I still get an A? No. It's plagiarism without that page. Clearly visible.
Yeah, let me just share something real quick on screen with this one because it's kind of fun. So let me move this out of my way. I went over here to Chat GPT and I said, hey, who are the best DUI lawyers in Los Angeles? And it used it based on the legal directories. And it just, gave them, pulled them out of the directories, tips for choosing them, check Avo, blah, blah, blah. So that's the source that it's using, So if you're not ranked highly in, particularly Avo here, you're not in. Gemini, which pulls from Google, said Golden Witham, Barry T. Simons, Eisner Gorin, Kraut, Part J. Levin, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you go here and you look at Google, if I do best DUI lawyer in Los Angeles, you start to pull down here to the results, Art Levin, Art Sturm, Golden Witham, so it's pulling from its top results, Kraut Law Group here. If you look in Bing over here, just because, best DUI lawyers in Los Angeles, you get a little Copilot answer here, MatPack, Yelp, Avo, drunkdrivinglawyers.com. By the way, I really like the fact that they put recommended here. This caught my eye. Just as a little side note. Thumbtack. So
there's no rule against that.
Yeah, there isn't. I'm just like, shit, I didn't think of that. But here, Avo and Yelp are the first things, and that's kind of what ChatGPT pulls from those because that's what's showing up first on these pages. So they're pulling from different sources, and because of that, they can be very, very different, depending on what sources and what pages are ranking at the top, whether they're directories, because Bing's pages don't go out to 10. The page one has got 4 to 6 results typically, in its stuff. So just keep in mind that when you're looking and you're asking different AI those questions, that they're pulling the results from different sources. And even when they use the same sources, they can pull and filter them in different ways.
Yeah. And remember, you can always ask the AI to say, hey, what was the criteria you used in choosing these 4 law firms to showcase? And it'll tell you. It'll cite sources, it'll talk amounts. And before the show today, I was pointing out that I was a little bit irked that Gemini used a success rate in court that it found in a regional proprietary database. And I was like, that's going to be a hard factor to work with. And so it's probably good to remember that AI and these LLMs, they are not search engines, not yet. You can ask them what the algorithm was. All right, let's see. HTXS has a global redirect that applies to a bunch of URLs.
Yeah, that was the guess for Charles is, how did this happen?
That's a pretty good guess. We all agreed that it sounded like HTXS shenanigans.
Yeah, and it makes me feel good that Trey and I were wrong together. That's the piece right there that just gives me comfort.
Hey, if you find the right file contains the problem, I'd say that's 80% credit. Finding the problem in the file, that's a lot more hit and miss.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. In a local market and using local business schema, Would adding direct local competitors in a same as list be helpful? Um,
No. You'll poison your entity. I put the answer in there too. Because the same as is telling Google, that's like me saying, "Hey, I'm Charles. I'm the same as Lee. I'm the same as Ted. I'm the same as Maj." That's
I'm
going
gonna
to
go
cause entity confusion.
I'm going to go different ways because they could be using, mentions or knows about, to sort of complete sort of, this sort of thing. But again, what's your page about? Is your page about, a directory of competitors, in your particular city, or is it about you and the specific services that you offer? So
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it.
Ted seems conflicted, but I would be a very strong no.
well,
Yeah, I'm a hell no. Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of on the fence because I doubt it would do very much. So if it's not going to do very much, it seems like it carries risk while probably being, little to no impact. Um,
Yeah, but which direction, if there were impact, is it more likely to be positive or negative? And Charles and I are both on the
I'd probably make an experiment and invent a new schema uh, element called better than, and I'd put a bunch of better thans in my schema, and just to see what happens when you invent your own relationships that have some sort of meaning to them. Um, let's see. Yeah, I probably wouldn't do it. I don't think it's really that necessary. What considerations if instead of redirecting, you present a simplified page? Oh yeah, for the no longer. Yeah, change the content. Don't redirect, just change the content. And everybody knows why and where the content is when you change the content. It's kind of foolproof if people leave the company. The content is on the page, and if we need to fix it, we update the content. So, yeah, I think that's the proper way to handle it, like
let's go
Lisa.
back. Let's go back to your days in ecom. When you had your Valentine's Day specials, or your
Yeah,
happy specials.
don't change the topic, but your Valentine's promotion page can be expired. It's an expired Valentine's promotion page. And if you ever run the promotion again, you tweak the content so it's not expired, but it's still a Valentine's promotion page. Uh, you know, it, I view it similar to in-stock status. Just because a product runs out of stock doesn't mean you turn it into a different products page in a different
Mm.
category. It's still the same product. It's just we don't have any right now. So yeah, you tweak the content, I think. Let's see. Interesting. Bing's adding buttons as Google is removing them. Um, yeah, Google experiments, and most of what Google experiments with does not stand the test of time. Think about how many daily experiments, because by their own admission, they're running multiple experiments per day. How many of them stick? I would guess that it's a very small percentage.
Mhm.
I I would say anything that doesn't move the needle probably gets purged from the system, which probably means that like 98% of those daily tests probably get purged.
I would guess that it's less than 1% on that, just because of the sheer volume of experiments that they run and how little, the SERPs change, over time. I mean, you see, here's a different presentation. Here's something they're trying. Or now they've brought back review stars. Now review stars are gone. I mean, there's always little tweaks and stuff, but a lot of the stuff just goes away. And from your own parsing stuff, how often do they change the presentation?
Uh,
It's
yeah, all the time.
yeah.
But yeah, I'd guess that their system is built to like, kill that stuff off aggressively, and you need a really good reason to persist something. So it's kind of
Yeah.
designed to kill off most experiments, would be my guess. Um, let's see. Also, with the site command, you should consider the trailing slash. Um, I mean, possibly. It should still match a substring match, though.
Mhm.
But the question becomes, can you show different content with and without the trailing slash? And I think trailing slash behavior is only enforced on the home page if you allow the domain without a document. So then trailing slash behavior could change from browser vendor to browser vendor, at which point your redirects could act on it if the browser isn't forcing some sort of normalization. So yeah, it would be a very obscure problem if a trailing slash on an inside directory had HT access issues where one URL showed one thing and one URL without the trailing slash showed another. I'd have a hard time setting it up and showing it, but I'm not certain that it's impossible. I think it would be obscure. Old browsers could do it. Um, let's see. Um, All right, where did I leave off? Here we go. Is there any content type that is more likely to get cited in ChatGPT? Well, list articles, hands down, the number one thing that they seem to like the most. So again, you can ask ChatGPT, what criteria was used in selecting these 10 sites and putting them in the order that you did. Please give me a data table of all that criteria that explains this result set. And then it has to show you everything it put in and why number one is number one. And AI is good at telling you its reasoning. So it's not a search engine in that regard. Let's see. Yeah. So uh, someone says, I would reverse engineer by prompting, then asking it to list sources. And yeah, it'll even list out the prominent list articles that it was referring to. And it'll talk about ones that are prominent. It'll talk about amount of mentions in list articles. It'll tell you if one of the sites only had one or two from some kind of obscure ones. So yeah, asking it to list that stuff out, definitely worth doing. Um, let's see, I've had AI overview cite my client's site after I implemented a press release targeting best X and X City. Yeah, because now you have 500 pages sending that message out there. So yeah, probably number two behind list style articles is going to be having lots of press. Um, so that's a good way to get a common message out there so that your common message is louder than everybody else's, because AI is going to look at that loudness of the message. And so, yeah, totally believe that's plausible. Let's see. I would think that the threshold to keep a test is probably such that 99% can't make it. Yeah, exactly. So you agree with Lee on the less than 1%. And I think that's probably likely as well. My guess came in at 2%, and in hindsight, I think I gave too big of a number. All right. Anything else you guys want to announce or talk about? Give people one last minute to get a last question in.
You want to give a tease for next week, Charles? Any little because we know the topic. You want to just like, you know what, and just something.
I feel like I already kind of teased or spoiled a little bit,
Okay.
but here, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Okay.
Take that for the tease you want.
I'll take random teases for 1,000.
And Lee, you are no broken clock.
You know what? Thank you, Terry. I appreciate you noticing.
Let's see.
That may not be the compliment you thought it was.
I could never be right. It's possible. But you know what? I choose to think of Terry as, complimentary.
MC4 is interesting to think of that it takes advantage of human tendencies. Yeah, and the tendency there is laziness and being in a rush to do things. Not thinking things through completely and having a detailed plan. Yeah, so MC4 is crazy like that because it really only works if you're doing a small number of things over and over again. And just remember, as you diversify your ranking signals, MC4 kind of gets more and more expensive to measure, which is why I think at a certain amount of signal diversity, you just get a pass on that algorithm even running. So try to get that critical mass of ranking signals so that MC4 is an other people problem, and the reason you're not ranking is something else.
Yeah, I want to make a recommendation to everybody watching. Saturday, I bought a book from Marty Marion on depositioning. It's a new book.
Mhm.
It is worth your time to go through. So.
Cool.
Yeah, Marty knows some things, so he'll open your eyes and he'll give you some perspective you've probably been missing. So there's probably gonna be something in there for everyone, is my
We've probably
guess.
all heard him talk about depositioning at different conferences and stuff, but he puts it together well and
Yep, good call out.
recommended.
All right. My client is considering an AI SEO agency. Wow. All right. They like slot machines. They do 2 AI blog posts a day, $60 a month. To me, it's risky because poor content and maybe even flagging Google for a penalty. What do you think? I don't think it's gonna flag you for a penalty. The reason I don't think it'll flag you for a penalty is that once Google weaponizes AI, then I can use AI to go leave a 5-star review on my competitor's product saying how awesome it is. It'll get detected by the AI penalizer and it'll punish my competitor's product. And there's a million little scenarios like that once you start turning AI content into a penalty play. So I don't think they can do it. And in fact, I know there's a an entire community of white hat people out there just hoping and praying that Google will drop the hammer on AI content soon, and they're predicting it's going to happen. Google's going the other way. Google's telling everyone, no, 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 our AI is the best. Our AI is better. Use ours to make your AI content. That's what Google's saying. So yeah, I don't think it has a risk of a penalty. And let's be careful about our terminology. So a penalty is Google says you did something wrong, therefore you are going to suffer until we deemed you have fixed it or done it right instead. Um, and those are more and more rare. Like I don't even remember the last time somebody came to me with a manual action. That's how rare they've become. I'm a professional SEO and people aren't beating down my door to get them fixed. And I think what most people are seeing are algorithmic demotions. And algorithmic demotions aren't something that require Google's involvement to turn around. It's you doing something silly and then you undo the silly and you revert back to where you were. And it can happen as quickly as 24 to 48 hours if you know what the thing was that was silly to do in the first place. And so I think most people are dealing with algorithmic demotions. And keep in mind, if it was an algorithm change, if Google had an update and you're saying, "Oh, it got me," whether your website goes up or down as a result of an update, it says the same thing. It says you have big holes in your SEO. Because if Google is making, backlinks weaker and exact matches stronger, your directionality as a result of that update depends on which one you had more of and which one you were weak in.
Mhm.
And so just remember when Google rolls back that update or decides to go the other way in 3 months, what's going to happen then? Well, then you're going to go in the opposite direction. If you went down last time, you'll go up this time. When you actually figure out what you're missing and you provide all of those things that you're should be doing but not doing, you don't go up and down. You just kind of coast through and you don't even notice the updates. And so that's why we do SEO the way that we do it with measurement tools, uh, because it has a really good track record of making Google updates unimportant.
Mhm.
So just, yeah. Lee, you look like you have a thought on the matter.
Oh yeah, I've got a couple that I'll share. One is, Lily Ray had a something that she had put out there that a lot of people have been discussing, which is the February update. There was a tremendous drop on a lot of sites that were using listicles, and for a while they were really, really hot. It seemed like Google was favoring these things, and if you threw out a listicle, it was yummy, yummy, and let's just move it on up. And it seems like that's not the case as much anymore. It's not to say that all listicles died, But there were some sites that would put up hundreds of listicle articles. So imagine a DUI lawyer, saying best DUI lawyer. Here's, the top 10 list. And oh, guess what? Lee's Law Firm is number one. And, best acquittal rate. Lee's Law Firm is number one. Best traffic debt. Lee's Law Firm was number one. You had all of these things. And I look at that and, then it dropped off. And I'm looking at it and thinking, well, there's other reasons why. If you publish mass content and it doesn't have other signals and things like that, it tends to rise and fall just like any other form of content. So I think a lot of the what people are looking for is the hacks to get me in there, which brings me to my second point. And this is my favorite, and I'll just share this with everybody. Right now, AI traffic is basically less than 2% of the traffic for most sites, and yet it's 30 to 60% of our attention. That is not a good use of time. That's not a good ROI. And I was sharing this with Nancy, and it may have been Charles, and he said, yeah, but that's what the marketplace is buying right now. So right now, this AI SEO agency thing is based on people selling this fear that you're not in a place that's not going to get you any traffic anyway, but we're the ones that are going to save you because SEO is dead. And we just showed this morning that SEO determined the pool of pages that got pulled to generate AI answers. So,
Yeah, it's really just a $60 a month placebo to help you sleep at night, knowing that you've got it covered.
If it
And
was
so,
only $60 a month, I see what people are charging for AI expertise. It is not $60 a month.
yeah, and there is some out there that is compelling. Like I think the best AIO uh, insights I've seen was at SEO IRL in Canada when Steve Toth dropped his knowledge bombs on what he's doing and what he's getting traction with.
Yeah.
And so he recently changed his newsletter from SEO Notebook to AI Notebook. If you want to feel like you have your feet in the water, maybe sign up for that list and look for the nugget drops and look for the speaking engagements. But I'd call it there for now until there's some industry vetting of the efficacy of these methods.
Yeah.
Don't be the first to pay big bucks. Be late to that game.
No, but everybody's selling it now. That's the thing. It's like, Ted, you're dead. Unless you get in and buy my AI, package, you're going to be invisible to the world and, blah, blah, blah.
Let's test that hypothesis. Let's see. Thinking about MC4, how to improve trust rank efficiently. Well, you can ask AI to look at a page and to write a list of trust signals that are missing or lacking on that page, and AI does a pretty good job. So I'd say, AI can probably give you the easy 70% of what you need on that list. And just make sure that you're knocking off the diversity of those trust signals. And what's cool is AI, it's read all the patents, it's read all of the comments out there, it's read all the source code that's out there. And so it's going to be really good at giving you, what are the expertise signals. I used to always complain about EAT and, how do you measure the E? Well, now I know how you measure the E. You can go to AI and ask it to write, what are the expertise signals that are lacking on my page? And you can do it with specific updates too. You can say, what are some helpful content considerations I should be putting on my page? And can you give me some examples, some hypothetical examples of things I could do to make my page more helpful in terms of helpful content? And so you can do those things with AI. And I don't believe that they are, by themselves complete. But if you're doing nothing, at least starting there is probably going to be 60% or more of what you need. Um, any thoughts on that, using AI to find signals?
I would say that one of the things I learned in Lee's training is something is always better than nothing. Specifically, some SEO is always better than no SEO. The answer you're going to get from AI may not be perfect. Um, and don't consider any answer AI gives you as magic. You have to give it guardrails. You have to say,
Mhm.
I don't like to trust that AI is going to find the information. So Ted, you made the point that, oh, it knows the patents and knows this. I always don't trust that it knows that. I always give it the, like, here's the page, here's this. Based on this, what do you think of this deep content or something? I just
Yeah.
don't trust AI that much. But my point is, to your point, yeah, getting some information out of AI is I just did a reverse test just now on a client. I put him in chat, I checked ChatGPT. He wasn't in ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT, why is it not in there? And it said, man, it probably should be in there. I said, well, what do I have to do to get him in there? And it gave me a huge action plan. I was like, all right, that's actually a really good ChatGPT AI SEO, local SEO. It's a pretty good action plan overall. So, um, it's
Yeah.
it's
And Lee and I teach zeros and ones in different ways. I'm more of a finding and fixing your zeros is how you diversify, and Lee is more like the power differential and the data is off the charts. Uh, but the zeros are the problem. And so even a blind squirrel can accidentally diversify its nut collection. So
Mhm.
keep that in mind when you look at your nut collection and go, why are they all, acorns? There's a reason they're all acorns. um, all right, let's see. Is there still strong correlation between ChatGPT results and Bing search results?
Yeah, and you can check it just by looking at a few searches in there.
Someone ping Madge, I need AI PR, LOL. Uh, yeah, he's getting people news. So his new program, it looks interesting. I can't wait to hear more about it. We'll get him to talk about what's in it and what it does and who it's for and why you want it. We'll get some answers out of him. What's the most underutilized Cora diversity factor? Uh, Statistically, I'm going to say referring domains because about 80% of all keywords, the referring domains for page one look something like this: 30, 15, 0, 22, 8, 91, 131, 0, 9, 11, and 17. And those numbers are all a tie. And people ask, how can, 131 referring domains be a tie with 0? It's because we need a standard candle as our basis of comparison. And for us, the standard candle is how many referring domains do you get from one decent, honest, white hat press release? And if you go to a decent provider, they will give you the distribution list in a spreadsheet and you can count them up yourself. Should be in the ballpark of about 500. And so all of those referring domain numbers I just rattled off, those are all closer to 0 press releases than they are to 1. So I find about 80% of the time, the whole off page SEO strategy, 1 press release, maybe 2, included in the cost of your service. Uh, and then the next question everyone asks is, does that mean I need to do a press release for every page? No, by the time you do this to 2 or 3 important pages, you're just outclassing everybody else's 8s and 11s. You just don't need to try that hard. So yeah. Uh, let's see. You guys, you have any thoughts on the most underutilized diversity factors?
No, no, I think that you covered it well.
Yeah, I think that's the number one. So
Yeah.
80% of everything is hit with that one. So diversify it. And you kind of know the other things. If you've been neglecting schema for years now, all right, it might come to a surprise to you, but you should probably stop doing that. Hey, give it some thought. All right. Migrating a local website to a national website. Well, just give it a different domain. Just whichever one was the existing one, keeps the setup it has, and give the other one a different domain. Just do it, because you're gonna regret it when you do it, or you're gonna want to undo it, or you're gonna want to flip-flop which one. Just do a different domain is my advice. Just do yourself a favor, different domain on whichever one is the new occurrence. What do you guys think?
I had the same anguish when I read the question as you, Ted. I'd be interested to hear what Charles has to say because, is he going to go a different way or is it going to be 3 for 3?
Well, in his question, he's asking what he does with the generic city pages. Does he go into basically he's asking, should I send him to the homepage? Because he seems concerned. I would agree. I mean, I don't know how many pages we're talking about. If we're talking about 5 pages, I wouldn't worry about it. My first question is, I'm assuming there's no city pages on the new site. If you're dealing with like hundreds or even thousands, I would agree. Don't redirect them to the homepage because they're going to show up as soft 404s. I would create You could let them 404. It's not the end of the world if they're 404, really 410. Um, what I typically do is I create an HTML sitemap on the new site, and then I redirect everything to that. And it just basically helps Google to crawl. It just basically pushes all this authority to an HTML sitemap, helps Google crawl your new site. Um,
But if you're trying to be local and national at the same time,
yeah.
you really need 2 domains.
Yeah, they had the national websites based out of Austin and the old websites had San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Plano, and Waco. So it's 5 pages.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is, what do they stand to lose? If they get no traffic today, you're really not risking anything.
Yeah.
But if losing the local traffic tomorrow means that they won't be able to pay rent or payroll, then use 2 domains. All right. Uh, so what do you think it's worth going with a pure AI SEO agency? Well, I mean, what it's worth is what they do for you, right? So the outcome will tell
He's thinking
you.
about switching his agency over to that, I think.
I think you should have an offering just so you can keep up with the Joneses, but you know, keep it in check. Tell people this is an emergent thing. It's probably going to be less than 2% of your traffic at best right now. We're on top of it. We'll let you know as things develop, and we'll make sure that you're in a good state for today, but don't expect miracles from that as a channel. Um, that's what I do. People want to sleep at night, and if you're gonna spot check AI for their important terms and make sure they have representation. And if they don't, you're going to try to do some things about it. That might be something you can add on to your other services, but just be honest about what it's going to deliver. And probably the most important thing it's going to deliver is some sleep at night for somebody.
Yeah, with respect to Dennis Miller, I don't want to go off on a rant here, but I think that's the wrong question. I absolutely think that's the wrong question because you're looking at SEO or AEO or AIO categorized in different ways with certain types of content and certain outcomes. And the question I have is when you're doing something for your clients, what's things that's going to make them money? So you can write good content or bad content, white hat, gray hat, or black hat. If Ted wrote a killer blog post on Kim Kardashian's upcoming wedding and all of the decorations and flowers that they're using, he might get 10,000 visitors a day on the damn thing, but nobody's buying Cora. That's the thing. So it's utterly useless. And if you get them in the AI overview, but it doesn't lead to traffic, which leads to somebody hitting the add to cart button, or buying or scheduling a call or whatever else, it's utterly fucking useless. So the question is not what vehicle do you use? It's which vehicle makes your clients money and which ones can you demonstrate make them money.
Yeah, Lee's absolutely right. Be careful what you promise, because if you go out there telling people that, being cited in AI overviews is going to revolutionize their business, be prepared for what happens when it doesn't.
Yeah.
So call that shot too.
Yeah, because again, I've seen people that use traffic strategies, blogging strategies, content strategies that do generate tons and tons of traffic and none of it converts. And then they're shocked when the client leaves. And I don't understand why you're shocked when the client leaves, because no client ever comes to you and says, "Hey, Ted, I would love for you to SEO my site, quadruple my traffic this year, but I don't want any extra business." That's not what they're coming to you for.
Yeah, you can buy do nothing expired domains on the cheap and point them at existing websites, and you will multiply all of the
Traffic.
bot traffic those do nothing sites had, because it'll all be delivered to the target. I mean, traffic's easy to do that way. But it's not human beings, and people want human beings to walk in their door. Um, all right. Next question is using an indexer tool, black hat. Here's the thing about the colors of the hats. All right. Uh, any SEO that works is black hat. Any SEO that doesn't work is Google approved. Because what happens is SEO that works is us choosing what ranks where. All right. And Google doesn't want that. Google wants to avoid that at all costs. And so just know that any SEO that works is going to be irritating to Google's business model. So if you follow Google's advice on SEO, on how to do well in search engines, what you typically find is that wastes a ton of time and resources and gets you nowhere. And those are the recommendations they give publicly for years and years and years. And as SEOs, we actually prefer it when people try SEO Google's way first because it just eliminates the debate. Like we don't have to argue about it. We don't have to just go try Google's way first. Come back to me. Let me know what you found. Uh, because if you've been doing it Google's way for years and it's still not ranked yet, it should have worked by now.
Mhm.
So you can't keep doing the same thing and hope for change. What do you think, Lee?
I think it's true. I think I'm going to answer this question and his next question, which was does an HTML sitemap on the footer reduce crawl depth? Both of these are very, very testable and they're very, very easy to test. And I would tell you that I would never trust Ted Kubaitis with SEO knowledge. Ted tells more lies per minute than anybody else on YouTube. And the way you can prove that he doesn't know what he's talking about is to go test what he says. And that's sort of the viewpoint or the vantage point you should take with anybody giving out SEO advice. Go see if it actually works. So, some of the questions like the HTML sitemap, that's a real easy one. Just drop an HTML sitemap, on a couple of your sites and see what happens to the crawl depth over the next, couple, 3 weeks. Does Google kill your site? No, they're not going to kill your site. Does it go up? Possibly, because it's just another way of discovering all of those URLs. Or maybe nothing happens. But you'll have the answers. And that's one of the beauties of testing is that, you can try the stuff. I'll put out a shout out to Charles, and I know it's going to make people kind of ping him about this, but Charles went out and tested all the indexers, out there. He got a whole bunch of them. And there are a whole bunch of paid indexers, popular paid indexers that don't even get your fucking page crawled. So, that's good knowledge that Charles has because he went out and tested. He didn't just believe, oh, you should use this one or that one or the other one. So test it.
And it may not be nefarious activity on that. For a long time, indexers have worked well and not worked well, and then we're back into working well, and then they didn't work well. And for years, the best advice running was if it's important to you, don't trust only one. So I would imagine that next year's working indexers are probably going to be a different list than this year's, and that's just kind of how that runs. Another interesting thing about the HTML sitemap on the footer, especially if you're a web developer, you know enough PHP to be dangerous, and you can set up a couple server scripts to occasionally look at the logs. You can find your pages that Googlebot didn't visit last month, and that's the content for the sitemap in the footer this month. And you just keep running that thing where anything Google didn't give attention, that's what's on that sitemap page.
So that's a
And that,
great, that's, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say that's a
yeah,
great
yeah.
point. I threw an answer in there like, yeah, I like HTML sitemaps, but don't just make it a duplication of your navigation. That's what so many people do. It's just a copy of the navigation. That doesn't help your site depth at all, or your crawl depth at all. What Ted Talk is talking about, like you could even do scripts. You could even use API calls to Search Console and say, hey, what's showing up in this group? And you use that to build out your pages. That's, think about what's deep on your site and then how do you bring it up? How do you bubble it up with your HTML sitemap? Don't just copy your navigation. Everyone does that. It drives me crazy because you're not doing anything.
And if you're expert level on doing this stuff to get Google's attention to where it's most needed, like let's say it's an online retailer, you can look at the product run rate or the revenue or the product margin and make sure that you're prioritizing things that you're in deep and you need to turn, or things that make good money. And you can also get promotional. Yes, SEO can be promotional. You can make sure that that sitemap is emphasizing your current promotions. Because you definitely want Google to be up to date on those. And this can be especially helpful when you're dealing with holidays that typically have shipping cutoffs, and you want Google to keep up with the cutoff status or the sold out status or the promotion end date. This is a great way to get promotional with SEO.
Mm.
Question. So it's safe to use an indexer tool. Well, it depends how it's built, right? Like you could build an indexer tool that takes your links and sends it out to XRumor, and you end up in the comment sections of lots of adult content websites. And that's one way of getting indexed. But it really depends how it's built. And so devil's in the details. Talk to people, find out what people are having success with, and tiptoe into there, because these are not websites you control. These are websites you don't control. And so cleaning up those messes can be difficult. The good news about indexers is the content they make is very short-lived. Oftentimes it doesn't even last 24 hours. So any indexers built that way are reasonably safe because they clean up their messes as they go. But you never know when it's just Joe Schmo's homemade method.
You also had one question, does pure AI content creation actually convert versus human written content? I'll throw something out there really, really quick. Depending on the study that you look at, it's like 90 to 97% of all web pages don't get any traffic at all. And if you say that most of those are human written and have been historically, it's like they're not well SEO'd, they're not well written for CRO. Humans can write crap content just as easily as AI can. So it's not about human versus AI. It's about, which one can connect better, with a human being. And for some people, your writing is horrible. AI probably does a better job, where it's never going to match the level of a top copywriter, for example. So don't
Yeah.
think in terms of who wrote it. Think in terms about what was written, and
Yeah, AI does a better job than I do, because my heart's not in it, and my attention to detail isn't in it. And so remember this prompt, look at this URL and tell me what questions customers are likely to ask that aren't already addressed by the content at that URL. AI is amazing at finding the negative information that is missing, and that just points out how much better or not better it is than you. And so if you find that that prompt gets a better page and helps you answer your customers' questions better, then AI is probably beneficial for you too. And to date, I haven't seen anyone that went that direction with AI and said, no, AI had nothing for me. I had all the bases covered every time. Uh, haven't seen that yet, but maybe it's happened. All right. That means there's two types of that bot, one that remembers what it's crawled before and one that just goes and finds. Yeah. Already indexed pages get different technical treatment than new pages Google has never seen before. And Google can shut off those pipelines independently, because we see times where new content has a harder time getting indexed than page updates.
You can also see that in Search Console. They have two types of crawls in the crawl stats. Refresh and discovery are the labels that they use for their own internal crawls.
Um, and yeah, and related on that topic, domain age is not a thing, but how long a website has been in Google's database is a thing. So don't just look at the who is creation date on a domain name and figure that's value. You actually have to look at the Wayback Machine and see how far back it's been used as a website. And that's going to be a better indication if the domain has value. But yeah, you know, and the reason I know that is I used to have tons of domains that were registered in the 90s, exact match domains, but they were never used for websites. And those domains have no advantage over some new domain. They're the same thing in Google's eyes. Google never knew about it before, and we just sprung it on them now. New domain. Doesn't matter that it was registered in the 90s. Now, if it was used as a website since the 90s, that's different.
So that's the corollary. If you're buying a new domain to use in the future, go ahead and put something on it in the meantime, even if
Yep.
it's just a coming soon or something.
Yep.
You're sharing my coming soon strategy. That's my content, sir. That's my content.
Oops. Lee's new course, tested coming soon.
Tested coming soon.
All right. So that's our show. Thank you, Charles. Great presentation, and we'll see everyone next week.